Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of At the Movies with William Fletcher. As per usual, I am your host, William Fletcher, and this, I've been trying to get this all set up and started recording all this and get this all done, and so I can have this episode out for you guys today. My setup, again, I'm still not able to use my usual setup, that is indisposed, as we currently speak. So I'm not able to get to that location, my usual location to record, so I've had to sort of get a makeshift one, so the audio hopefully it sounds good. I think I've done the best with what I can do, but I hope that you are all, I hope you all had a very good New Year's, I hope you all had a very good Christmas as well. And so this being the 1st of January of the new year of 2022, I will be talking about the films that I watched in the past month of December 2021. Now, this will be one of the more shorter episodes of this sort of series I do, because a lot of these films I covered in my Review of the Year episode that went out earlier this week, because a lot of them were honorable mentions, or they're in my top 10 of the year, or my guests' top 10 of the year. So I probably won't talk about them too much, and some of these will be in either upcoming episodes or episodes that I've already had released. So I want to still try and get this to around 20 minutes, maybe. I don't know if I can, if I can get to that, but I guess we'll just see how it goes. So the first one I watched in a month was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie, which then led to the TV show. I did an episode on that and the TV show as well, if you want to go check that out. But to sort of simply boil it down, I think the movie is rather poor. I think it doesn't really do justice to, and it's kind of amazing that we got such a great TV show out of it, and that they were willing to sort of take the gamble on the TV show. Then we've got 28 Days Later and 28 Weeks Later. That it will be for an upcoming episode, so I'm going to not say anything, but I definitely liked one of them, and the other not so much. Then I watched the new Diary of a Wimpy Kid film that was released on Disney+. It's like an hour, it's 50 minutes, 57 or something, like less than an hour long. Yeah, it was pretty disappointing. Earlier this year I rewatched all the Diary of a Wimpy Kid films, the live-action ones. I think the first one is fine, the second and third one are pretty decent actually, and the most recent live-action one is very poor. I did not really care for it, and this one I didn't really care for it. I kind of feel like maybe we should just stop trying to make Wimpy Kid films. They're not really working, and it's a bit weird, because the books they're still writing books, still releasing them, and the books are doing incredibly well. I reread some of them earlier last year, just to see if they still held up, and I still fairly enjoyed it. They weren't like the most amazing things ever, but I still pretty solid, and I did rather like them. But it was just poor. The animation style was very weird. I got what they were sort of trying to go for with the whole making it look like the books, but that actually is a bad idea. And you shouldn't do that, because it looks strange. And it's just it's just really weird, isn't it? But it's not like it's the worst film in the world, but it's certainly not, the best way to put it is it's, if you don't watch it, you will not be missing out, because it's just not worth watching, and I more watched it for the sake of the sort of morbid curiosity is the best way to put it. Then after that, I watched Belfast, which is the new Kenneth Branagh film. It's going to be a big contender at the Oscars this year. I have a feeling it will probably get nominated for 8 Oscars, maybe. It'll probably get picture, director, 3 acting nominations, screenplay, cinematography because it's black and white. Maybe editing as well, production design. And it's a decent film. I'll probably talk about it more when it comes to the Oscar season, but I thought it was a perfectly decent film, and I probably won't watch it again because I didn't really care for it too much. Not bad, and I mean, I do. If it seems interesting to you, you should check it out. It's essentially about. It's loosely based off the director Kenneth Branagh's life when he was a kid. It's sort of like So I mean, if you're interested in watching that, I do recommend that you go check it out. Especially if it's because it's probably going to get nominated for Best Picture, and I do recommend that you go see it just to see, make your own interpretation and your own sort of opinion on the whole thing. And yeah, although it is in black and white, which doesn't really service the story, it just kind of feels like, ooh, black and white, ooh, and that's it really. It's just in black and white because it can be. Then I watched Home Sweet Home Alone. I don't think I need to really talk about it because I think everyone and their mum has talked about how this film fails as a film and how poor it is, and I don't really think, I'm going to be saying something you probably haven't heard already. It sucks. It fails. That's the best way to put it. It's a bad film because, I love the original Home Alone. Home Alone 2 is pretty decent, actually. 3 is fine, and I don't think 4 is the worst one. I haven't seen 5, but they're all pretty. I mean, it just fails. I don't like the kid in it. I think that's a big part of why the film fails. I think he's played by Archie Yates, who is in Jojo Rabbit, and I believe I touched on him in my Jojo Rabbit episode that I did on this podcast way back when. I think back in April, maybe even May, where I talked about how, he's probably one of the worst child actors working, and that feels like it's not, and it feels like, a lot of people are like, oh, all child actors are bad, but he's, really bad, to a point of, he's not just a bad actor, the way he's written makes him seem like an unlikable prick, he's a fucking douche, and it's just sort of why do I want... How can I root for a kid who's this much of an ass? Like Kevin in the original Home Alone. Yeah, he's incredibly rude to his family, but he's not malicious or anything. He's still he doesn't seem like he's an asshole. He seems like he's just a bit of a kid. But this this Archie, and plus his voice is bloody annoying. I had that in Jojo Rabbit where Roman Griffin Davis, who is probably the best part of that film, is at least attempting to do a German accent, but this kid isn't. He's just like, oh, Jojo, good for you, Jojo, but we touched on this in my review of the year episode as well, dogging on this film. It's not very good. Then after that, so a lot of the end of the year was just watching catching up on some films that I missed, because I haven't had time to see films. So I watched Free Guy, which we covered in a review of the year episode. A perfectly solid Ryan Reynolds comedy. I like some of the video game elements they did with it. I thought there was some funny jokes. The Chris Evans joke in particular was really good. I thought Ryan Reynolds was pretty solid, but it is Ryan Reynolds, he's good. I think Taika Waititi was bad, but I think he's a bad actor. I think he's bad in pretty much everything I've seen him in. Although he's pretty decent in What We Do in the Shadows, but besides that, besides that, he's not really impressed me. And yeah, so then I watched Ron's Gone Wrong, a new animated film that came out on Disney Plus. That was in theaters. It's about this kid, voiced by Jack Dylan Grazer, who gets a robot. All these people have got a robot toy. Well, it's not a toy. It's a robot, sort of helper. But it's more like a whole thing of, oh, it's this toy that, everyone, but here's this damage, and so it's a bit off, and it acts up, because it's, broken, and he's voiced by Zach Galifianakis, who I thought was pretty fun. I thought Zach Galifianakis was pretty funny in it. But other than that, it was like solid family entertainment. But it's definitely not something I would want to watch again. Now, in comparison, here's something I would definitely love to watch again. Last Night in Soho, one of my most anticipated films of the year. I unfortunately did not get to see it in cinemas, which is a big disappointment. But I watched it at home, and it was fantastic. It's probably one of Edgar Wright's weakest films. I would probably put all the Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim at like a minimum above it. I don't know if I'd put Baby Driver above it. I need to watch Baby Driver again. But it's definitely weaker than the Cornetto trilogy and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. But it's a very, very good film. Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy and Diana Rigg as well are all fantastic in the film. There's a big twist in it that I think I kind of predicted. Well, I was sort of a bit like... I had sort of a prediction of like, okay, I was like, there's probably going to be a twist, and I felt like it was going to be either this thing or this thing, and there's something that happens that disproves one of the things. So it's like, oh, so is it going to be this other thing? And then there's the sort of hints that, like, just before the sort of reveal that, like, oh, yeah, this is this thing, but the film kind of makes you question that and sort of has things happen that are like, oh, so did that actually happen? No, well then that kind of happened, can it? And then you find out later, everything is not as it seems, and then the thing you sort of rule out in your head as happening did actually happen. You're like, oh, damn, son. I really liked how the film... I mean, we covered it pretty extensively in my Review of the Year episode, one of the longer discussions, but it was really, really good. And it's definitely Edgar Wright's least funny film. Like, it's not like... I don't think many people went in expecting a comedy. I certainly did. I was like, it's going to be a horror film by Edgar Wright. I can't wait. But it's outstanding. It's probably his... Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a phenomenal film. And yeah, no, it's really, really good. So go see it if you haven't already. You'll hopefully like it. Then I saw Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, I covered this also very extensively in my Review of the Year episode, and I unfortunately had something spoiled for me, but it was kind of something it was sort of a bit obvious. I kind of was like, well, kind of figure that's sort of going to be a thing. I'm going to try and be as spoiler-free. Well, I go about it in my Review of the Year, but it's my favourite film of the year. And actually, at the end of this episode, I will give you guys my top 10, just in case you missed my Review of the Year episode. Because it's a very long episode, probably my longest I've ever done, and maybe will ever do. Who knows? Yeah, No Way Home was fantastic. One of probably my best theatre experience ever. We had people cheering and applauding at moments. You know, people were like every joke landed. You know, it wasn't like those people who go to cinemas and they're cheering at everything. They're like, "Whoa, credits!" and they're clapping when you see like, you know, the Marvel logo appear, like, or you know, when you see like a character that you know is gonna be in the film. It's just like whatever, you know. It's just like. And the spoiler I found out, I was kicking myself because I could have seen it the day before, on the 16th. So I saw it the day after it came out, and I was like, I had no problem seeing it, but I kind of thought in my head like, I could go see it today, and then I just couldn't for reasons. I didn't really have a way to get there, and I was told like, oh, but why would you do that? And I was like, I guess that makes sense, but I had a spoiler. And I kind of got upset about it, but at the end of the day, it's like it's a movie, you know. And I had that with Endgame too. I had it spoiled that that Tony dies at the end, which again was something I kind of figured would happen, and was pretty obviously gonna happen. But you know, it's still not. But it was still a great experience, and my favorite film of the year. Then I watched the South Park films. South Park post-COVID and South Park post-COVID, The Return of COVID. both of which were pretty solid. I don't know how often it has come up on this show, though I'm a very big South Park fan. But again, these were both covered in my Review of the Year episode. They were, very good. Very solid films that I had a very good time with, because South Park is, incredibly solid. It's hard to hate on South Park because it's like it's South Park, and South Park is a continuously good show. I haven't watched through all of it yet, but I've watched a decent portion, and I know a lot of stuff. And I do recommend that you check them out, just in case, because you might like them. Who knows? It is a really good films that I do recommend you see, because it's it's pretty much the best of South Park. And and Return of COVID is the better film. And The French Dispatch, again, covered in my Review of the Year, a solid Wes Anderson film. I'm not the biggest fan. I mean, I liked Grand Budapest Hotel, as I covered. Was it last? It must have been last month. And Fantastic Mr. Fox was also really solid. But I didn't think it was particularly amazing, and maybe Wes Anderson Stardust doesn't work for me. Very well shot, very good production design, but it wasn't like the most brilliant film. Then we had Coda, again, covered that a little more extensively in my Review of the Year episode. A really, really good film, and it had it was a really good film. I felt, Amelia Jones, who was the lead in it, was fantastic, and it was, nice to see her. I'm trying to sort of figure out first. Well, she's like 19. She's like a year older than I am, and she's already, this phenomenal actress. So if she's doing good now, she'll be amazing when she's like in her 30s. And also there's gonna be also Troy Kotzer and Marlee Matlin are also really solid in it. And it's a really solid film, and I do recommend you check it out if you get a chance to see it. Then I watched Coda, covered again in my Review of the Year episode. Phenomenal. No, not phenomenal. I don't know why I said phenomenal. It's a fine film. I think people lauding it as a masterpiece are insane, and people saying it's like really crap are also equally insane. It's a solid film. Again, I cover it in the Review of the Year episode. It's decent. It does go on for a bit, and I kind of was a bit confused at points and kind of felt like some of the characters were a bit meh. But, other than that, it's a decent film. Then I rewatched Spider-Man No Way Home, because it's Spider-Man No Way Home. I was gonna watch it again, because it's brilliant. Then I watched A Clockwork Orange for the very first time. Jesus Christ. I might have to do a proper episode on it, because there's so much to talk about. But, needless to say, I thought it was really good. The only kind of problems I had with it were I didn't really care. I don't really care for all the violence in it. It does feel like at a point there's just sort of violence for the sake of it. And it was sort of like, nah. And I thought the guy who played Frank, who's the a guy whose wife gets assaulted and killed by Alex and his mate Droogs. Yeah, it's and it's just it's a lot to say about it, but I might sort of save my thoughts for a proper episode of this podcast to really go into depth with it. Then I rewatched Die Hard because it's Die Hard. I don't really feel like I need to say much. It's Die Hard. It's amazing. It's a masterpiece. It's one of the best. It's arguably the best action film ever made, and one of my all-time favorite films. Alan Rickman was a phenomenal actor. May he rest in peace. And yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers. I don't know why I did that. That was completely unnecessary. And I watched Encanto, which I talked about on the Review of the Year episode. Really, really enjoyable film. It's probably been the first Disney film since 2016, which was when Moana and Zootopia came out, that I've really sort of cared about a Disney film and was really like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like, Pixar has always been great, you know, and then, like, yeah, he's just, it's pretty much like, you know, it's very much a, it's just sort of a, sorry, it's very much a film that's just, it's very light and sort of, you know, it's a very solid film. I thought sorry, I'm just sort of trying to sort of think about how to sort of phrase my thoughts in this, I guess. The songs in it were really great too. I thought Surface Pressure and We Don't Talk About Bruno in particular were outstanding songs, and if you just go listen to the songs if you haven't seen the film, and if you like those songs, you will probably like the film because they're very well written. Because it's basically the best of Lin-Manuel Miranda, but it's not like his Hamilton shit. It's like his Moana shit. That's the best way to put it. It's more like Moana than it is Hamilton. If you don't like Hamilton but you like Moana, you'll probably like them. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And after that was Being the Ricardos, the new Aaron Sorkin film. It was solid. It's Aaron Sorkin. He's a solid filmmaker. He's a decent director, a very good script writer. I'm not too familiar with the history on Lucille Ball and the I Love Lucy show, but I thought it was a perfectly adequate, a rather good film. There's not really much to talk about. It's just another Aaron Sorkin joint. But yeah, I do recommend you check it out if you like Aaron Sorkin and Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem. And I watched Titan. I didn't like it. I thought it was. I don't want to really say anything. I kind of want you guys to go watch it if you haven't seen it and make your own thoughts. It feels to me like a film that really revels in violence and sort of exploits it. Not exploits it, that's not the correct word, but like uses violence and sort of shows like, look how cool this violence is, you know, and sort of it goes way too far at points. And I really didn't care for it, and I know there's going to be some people who love this film who think I'm wrong, but I didn't really care for it. I didn't really care with it. I didn't care. I thought it was a bit crap, honestly. But, you know, go watch it and have your thoughts on it. And then the final two films I watched were two Charlie Chaplin films. I planned to watch more, but I got sick and I didn't have the time to watch them. The Kid and A Woman of Paris, A Drama of Fate. The Kid, pretty much one of the sort of quintessential Charlie Chaplin films. It's one of the ones, it's like up there with Modern Times, City Lights, Gold Rush, Great Dictator. Those are pretty much the ones you need to see. Yeah, it was a surprisingly emotional film, and I really got into sort of the relationship between the tramp and the kid. And I thought it had a really nice sort of cute ending. Woman of Paris, Drama of Fate was interesting. Very interesting film. if you can find it somewhere and go watch it, I do recommend you check it out because it's certainly an interesting film to watch, and it's definitely got some interesting bits to talk about. But I just thought it was solid. It was a fine film. There's not really much to talk about. And that is everything that I watched this past month. So I'm going to give you so at the end of the year, I watched 225 films in the year, which I think is pretty good. Like, that's a pretty solid year of film watching. And, yeah. I watched a lot of films, some stuff I'd seen before, and then I watched a ton of new stuff too. So, yeah. A lot of really good stuff, some bad stuff too. I'm gonna try and sort of make a bit of a conscious effort to, if I see something a bad film to watch, I'll probably watch it because and you need to watch bad films and good films. And yeah, so before I wrap this episode up, I'm just gonna give you a quick rundown of my top 10 films of the year if you missed out on my review of the year episode. So my top 10 films of the year: King Richard, The Return of South Park Post-COVID, The Return of COVID, No Time to Die, The Suicide Squad, Coda, Tick Tick Boom, Last Night in Soho, Nobody, Bo Burnham Inside, and Spider-Man No Way Home. So that is my top 10 films of the year, and that is the very first episode of this podcast for the year of 2022. So thank you all for tuning in and listening to this week's episode. And on Monday, I've got a very special episode with an episode that I had planned a while back to record. I got that recorded yesterday, so I'll edit that over the weekend, and that episode will be out to you all on Monday. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.